Hello YouTube, this is the Atheist Guard, and again we're looking at questions that no atheist can answer. So I haven't previewed this at all, I'm just going to go through it and just see how hard these are to answer. Now this one's published by Love Allah 328, published March 3rd, 2018, so this is a fairly recent video. The first frame in the video says Incognito Islamic Productions, whatever the heck that means. So here we go. Let's see what we got here.
What are the questions that no atheist will be able to answer? A. How did existence emerge out of no space and no time? How can an atheist assume that his atheism is valid when the moment of the start of existence is a stark proof on the creativity of the Creator and his ability to originate existence? Space and no time.
I don't know. Next question. I mean, seriously. God of the gaps. They think they have an answer because they think they can explain this thing that atheists can't answer. It's not that no atheist can answer this. No intellectually honest person can answer this with any confidence that this is the case. Like, we don't have evidence for the cause of the universe coming into existence. So there is no answer to that question yet. Theism proposes an answer, that there's some mystical, imaginary, invisible, transcendent creator that made it. Of course, they can't demonstrate that, but that's their answer. Having an answer that you can't demonstrate is intellectually dishonest. It's very close to just being a lie. Asserting to be true that which is not demonstrably true, I mean, that's pretty close to just lying. These people tend to believe this stuff wholeheartedly, that their God created the universe, but they have no way of demonstrating that. They just assert it as a brute fact. Now, what are some ways that the universe could have come into existence? If by universe we're talking about our local space-time presentation, the universe in which we inhabit, the universe that appears to have expanded from a singularity in what is typically called the Big Bang event, that universe, it may not be a matter of emerging. It may just be a transition from a different state. Like basically, the singularity could have always existed and then spontaneously erupted into our universe due to something analogous to a quantum fluctuation. It was inevitable that this universe would expand because staying in that compacted state was unstable. So that's one way of explaining it. Another way is that there's a multiverse, and that universes come into existence and go out of existence. And this multiverse has always existed. In our universe, the one that we perceive, the one that we inhabit, this set of space-time dimensions, is just one universe among many that have always existed. Our universe started 13-some billion years ago at the Big Bang event because universes just do that. There's never been a non-existence. There's never been nothing from which our universe was derived. It came from something, and this multiverse has properties such that universes spring into existence out of it. That's another potential explanation. But we don't have any evidence for anything before the Big Bang. We don't have any mechanism that we can demonstrate caused the Big Bang. We don't have any information about our universe even one Planck second after the Big Bang. So there's a big question mark even there, let alone before the actual Big Bang event. I mean, they're going to assert they have an answer, but they don't have any way of demonstrating it any more than I can demonstrate the multiverse. So let me see where this question actually stops and the next one picks up.
How can an atheist assume that his atheism is valid when the moment of the start of existence is a stark proof on the creativity of the Creator and his ability to originate existence?
It's not stark proof. It's not proof of a creator. It's just proof that our universe exists. And the fact that we're in a universe compatible with our existence is pretty much common sense. We wouldn't be in a universe that was incompatible with our existence. So if there's multiple universes out there, the one that we would be in is the one that works for us, the one that is compatible with our existence. If this universe had formed in a different way, we wouldn't be in there. So this isn't proof of a creator. This is proof that the universe came into existence and that we fit the universe that came into existence, that we evolved to fit that type of universe. They got it all backwards. And we're talking anthropic principle.
B. How did no life transform into life?
How did? Arguments from ignorance. It's just a basic logical fallacy. God of the gaps.
How did matter mutate from lifelessness into living cell?
It's called abiogenesis. It's basically you take inorganic matter that becomes organic matter, still not life, just organic, and then organic matter combines in certain ways that eventually qualify as some sort of a life. Either way, let's just say we don't have an explanation for how life came from non-life. Again, they're just asserting they have an answer that they can't demonstrate is actually the case. But being that we do know of pathways for inorganic matter to become organic, and then organic matter to start building structures like cells, phospholipid bilayers form automatically. They just line up certain ways. Lipids, you can go into all the details about abiogenesis and explain this to these guys. And at some point, you get a protocell that can hold within it molecules. And if those molecules that they're holding do something beneficial for that overall structure, then those are going to be preferred over the protocells that hold molecules that don't do anything beneficial for them. So you get this sort of primitive form of natural selection that takes over, and the ones that have beneficial features tend to be the ones that survive longer, because that's what we're calling beneficial, is survival. And then it just gets more and more complex, because the more complex molecule that you can contain that can do more beneficial things for the protocell, those are the ones that are going to get preferred, and they're actually going to compete for the same resources as the inferior versions of protocells. And eventually you get to a metabolism, a cycle of division. It's all been explained, We don't have an exact model of how it happened in this case on this planet, but it's not unfeasible. And in any case, even if we lack an explanation at all, it doesn't justify God did it.
With all our techniques and advancements, we cannot, till this very moment, originate the simplest form of life. So how can we explain the origination of life in the dead matter? Wouldn't we have been...
Matter isn't dead. Matter is just matter. We're talking about chemical laws. We're talking about the properties of atoms, basically electromagnetism that causes atoms to arrange themselves in certain patterns and into molecules, and those molecules can do certain things because they attract other molecules and atoms differently. This is basic chemistry we're talking about here that becomes organic chemistry, that becomes structural chemistry. And that's how you get into this whole thing towards a life form. In any case, it's argument from ignorance. How can you explain this, therefore, God? Sorry, it's a logical fallacy.
Wouldn't we have been at least able to originate a form of life that supersedes the one that originated in the dead matter by at least 1,000,000 times? C. How can the atheist argue against the annihilation of all mankind? What is the rational, substantial, and scientific evidence an atheist can present to prove that annihilation of all mankind is a mistake? The material world knows no...
The annihilation of all mankind is a... What is he talking about?
The material world knows no right and wrong, so annihilation of mankind must be equal to keeping them alive from their perspective. D.
Oh my God, nihilism. No, we have a way of determining what's right and wrong. It's really simple to come up with a basic moral system. If you value well-being, you're going to be the one that wants to survive. You're going to want to have a society that also values well-being, that you come up with ideas that can promote well-being. And you're going to avoid actions and ideas that would detract from that, that would cause harm. because it's beneficial to me to live in a society that doesn't want to harm me or doesn't encourage those kinds of actions. It's beneficial to me to be in a society that values well-being. And so we evaluate consequences, we evaluate situations. We're talking situational ethics and consequentialism, and we're just basing it on well-being because it is a fact. It is an objective fact that there are things you can do that are beneficial to well-being and not beneficial to well-being. Cutting off my head, not beneficial to well-being. Letting people steal from me, not beneficial to my well-being. So therefore, I'm going to prohibit those kind of things as they are harmful. They're demonstrably harmful. This isn't an opinion. This is actually true. So there's an objective way to go about determining the things that we're going to value as morals. And the foundation of that is just valuing well-being. And if you don't value well-being, then go kill yourself. You're not going to be part of my society if you don't value well-being. We're not going to worry about you. We're going to worry about the sane people that have empathy, that can respect life, that have compassion, because those things are beneficial to the entire society and the individual, by definition.
Atheism assumes that human beings are just animals who came into existence after a long and slow sequence of evolution from meaner beings.
We don't assume that. It's a demonstrable fact confirmed by genetics. Even if we have no fossil record, the DNA evidence alone is enough to confirm common ancestry.
So what if a higher being came into existence? Will it have the right to put us all in cages and use us as lab rats?
No. And there is no such thing as a higher being. We're all evolved. Since the 13 billion years ago the universe began, and the 4-some billion years ago that the earth began, it's been at the same amount of time. Everything that's alive now has had the same amount of time to get here. And it's a tree. It's not a ladder. It's a tree of life. So there's no superiority.
The Darwinist answer that we derive from matter is yes.
No, it's not.
So, what's the purpose from protecting mankind or providing them with meaning or purpose when it comes to atheism?
Atheism doesn't define meaning of life or purpose. It's just an answer to the question, does a God exist? I don't believe that. That's the answer. That makes you an atheist. If you don't have a belief that a God exists, you're an atheist. It has nothing to do with the meaning of life. Meaning of life, you get that on your own. You define your meaning. You define your meaning. It's not that complicated.
Atheism here is unable to explain the reality of man. What if, according to evolution, we proved that one race is higher than the other?
You can't have one race higher than another. Race is a social construct entirely. It doesn't mean anything. What, based on skin color? That's just a variation caused by genetic isolation of population groups.
Will the higher race be entitled to transform the lesser race into used matter?
No.
As we do with the lesser insects or animals? Again, the Darwinist answer is yes.
No, it's not. Darwinism isn't even a thing. Darwin had a theory, and since then it's become a new synthesis of different, more information was found, and it had to be modified to include, Mendelian genetics and all kinds of other things had to be added to it as we've discovered more about why evolution happens. It's not just natural selection. There's all kinds of selection pressures. There's punctuated equilibrium as well. And none of this tells you what you should do or what you must do or what you can do from an ethical standpoint. That's entirely sociological. That's something we have to discover for ourselves and figure out, is it beneficial for me to oppress another human being? In the end, no. If you have a society that permits the oppression of one race over another, that's a net negative because there are people being harmed. Specifically, the ones being oppressed are being harmed. Avoiding harm is a good thing by definition, not an opinion. Avoiding harm to humans is a benefit to humans. It's a duh kind of concept, and I don't understand why it's so hard for these people to understand that. But he keeps going with this premise that Darwinism says that we have to abide by a certain ethic because we're just animals, Sorry, we're animals. It's by definition, we are animals. That doesn't mean we have to do anything. That doesn't tell us what our behaviors should be or how we should structure societies.
This very argument is enough to obliterate atheism from any mind that utilizes common sense, since the only criteria to judge who is better than who is the criterion of God-fearingness, not by color or strength.
And yet, that's not the track history of theism at all, is it? It's conquest. It's your belief is inferior to my belief, therefore we're going to come and take your shit. It's we are superior because we believe in the right God, and therefore we're going to burn you at the stake or behead you. And Islam does not get a pass on any of that over any other religion. I mean, Christianity had its conquests and inquisitions. Islam's doing the same thing. It's entirely hypocritical for him to make that argument.
F. Atheists argue that morals are relative,
No, we
meaning
don't.
can be seen from more than one perspective. So, honesty can be better than betrayal, or betrayal can be better in some cases. Yet, when confronted with their own trials, they claim outright that morality is objective and that things like honesty or betrayal are absolute. Because if morals are relative, then immorality makes no sense, since we will never be able to set a line between morality and immorality. This is definitely a clear contradiction, because if morality was objective and absolute, then this law of morality must have had a lawgiver, the will of Allah, and divine accountability. If morality was relative, then no atheist must complain from immorality or even comprehend its concept.
That's ridiculous. Atheists don't have a single position on morality. Some are moral relativists. Some aren't. I'm not one. I believe in objective morals that make sense because I value well-being, because well-being is by definition beneficial to me and society. Then I can make objective statements about that which is beneficial or detracts from well-being. It really boggles my mind how these people can get so confused and think that morality has to be this absolute thing. That's relative. If you're saying that I'm only doing this because this authority says it's okay, or this authority says this is bad, so that's why I'm not doing it, you're just appealing to that authority's subjective assessments. You're not basing your morality on anything objective. You're saying it's absolute only because it's coming from a higher being, because it's their authority that makes it true. Whereas I am basing my morality on objective standards, that which is beneficial versus that which detracts from well-being. I mean, and these things there's nuance to it, and that's what he might be confusing. It's not relativism, it's just nuance. If I have to kill somebody, I can either do it for bad reason, which makes it immoral, or I can do it for a good reason, like self-defense, and that makes it moral. Morally permissible, at least. If I have to act in self-defense and kill somebody, that's not murder. But if I go out and just kill somebody without any cause, no threats of my life, or for some nefarious purpose, that's what makes it immoral. I'm causing harm to somebody unnecessarily. Whereas in the case of self-defense, I'm avoiding my own harm that this person, this other immoral person, is going to inflict on me if I don't act quick enough. So, I don't know.
G. How did the amazing constants of physics emerge?
How did they? How did they? Argument from ignorance. I don't know how it happened, so therefore God.
All of these constants entail very intricate differences that must never vary, even by the slightest or minutest fraction, or the whole universe would collapse.
That's actually false. A lot of the constants can be adjusted within a pretty good margin, and the universe would still be similar. And if we were in a universe that had different constants, if there was a universe that had different constants such that it wouldn't be our universe and our life wouldn't be compatible with that universe, we wouldn't be in that universe to think about it. We're going to be in a universe where the constants are what they are such that we can be here. See, they got it all backwards. They got the entire concept backwards. They're basically looking at the universe and saying, wow, it's so compatible with my existence. It must have been created that way. These constants are perfect for my existence. Well, duh, you're in the universe that's perfect for your existence. And let's not forget the fact that almost the entire universe is hostile to your existence. That even on the planet Earth, only a small fraction of its surface is compatible with your existence. The rest is covered with salt water, which you can't even drink, or is a glacier, or a continent that's entirely too cold for you to exist, let alone deserts, the storms that tend to kill people, earthquakes, tsunamis. Our planet's pretty hostile to our existence, yet we found a way to make it work here. But the entire universe, other than this small speck of dust that we live on, is hostile to our existence. There might be another couple planets out there in our galaxy that might be compatible. We haven't found them yet. And the vast majority of the universe is hostile. If anything, the universe is made to create black holes. I think Stephen Hawking said that. I mean, that's what the universe does best. It makes black holes, which have nothing to do with us. But yeah, the constants in this universe are what they are because we're in the universe that has to have those constants for us to exist. It's not because they were intended that way. Nobody had to write them down and then create a model out of it to make us the conclusion. We're not the conclusion of this universe. We're an insignificant nothing compared to the rest of the universe. The universe is huge. And yet this guy thinks the universe was made for us. I don't know.
For instance, the cosmological constant is fine-tuned to 120 decibel places, and if it was 1 decibel more or less, the whole universe would collapse. This precision proves that accuracy of a great maker, noting that the constants are numerous in physics and all of them are intricately precise.
No, they're not. They're not intricately precise. There's a margin of error for every single constant, that they could still be a little bit more, a little bit less, and it would still work just fine. And if the cosmological constant was different, yes, we could still be here. And the universe would eventually collapse because gravity would overtake the expansion rate of the universe and lead to a big crunch. But as it seems right now, it looks like the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate such that it will eventually still become uninhabitable by humans. It'll just basically fizzle out to a heat death to where even the atoms themselves can't even remain bound to each other. The energy will just go down and down and down until there's absolutely nothing recognizable as structure. It'll basically freeze as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which is what it currently looks like it's going to do. So in any case, the universe is only temporarily compatible with our existence at the moment. And that's provided some comet doesn't smash into the earth and obliterate us all tomorrow,
H. How did the genome emerge within the living cells?
Argument for ignorance. Doesn't know how it happened, therefore God.
A code must require a coder, and this genome designates what each cell will be used for. Doesn't this prove?
No, it's chemistry. These are atoms arranged in a helical pattern because atoms tend to do that. They tend to line up in strings. Sometimes they line up in round things and circles with things coming off of them. Molecules can take on a number of different shapes, and strings of molecules is one way of doing it. And what this does is basically the laws of chemistry, that's all it is, make it such that this particular molecule here will connect to another molecule, and then the next one in line will connect to another molecule, and these things line up like a zipper, and then they separate. Then they can multiply and go on and do other things. But there's no actual intent going into that. It's just, that's what the molecules do. DNA just does what it does. How did DNA arise? It arises from simpler forms of self-replicating molecules, like RNA. How did RNA arise? Well, you can actually get into that when you study abiogenesis. How did RNA arise? Well, it's really not that complicated. I mean, there's several stages in the process, but you can explain the stages. if he wanted to know, he could research it. So him asking how, and it's only a code from our perspective. We're imbuing it with that type of a conceptual structure. It's not a code. If I give you a random line of letters, and it means absolutely nothing to you, and then I give you another random line of letters, and just by chance, 3 of the letters are N-O-T. So N-O-T is an actual word. Hey, that has meaning to you. But it was still random. Let's think about the protocell. If you have a string-type molecule, like pre-RNA, and it's just random, and it doesn't do anything, well, that's just a useless molecule. It's not going to do anything to help the protocell. But say, billions and billions of tries, these chemical combinations happening, you get another string that actually has a section of code that does make it react with certain atoms in such a way that it strengthens the overall protocell or something. That's going to be something that can be inherited when it combines and then separates and goes off in another protocell. And that will be selected for, again, without any intention. It's just going to be the fact that the one that has the beneficial code, the one that has the beneficial random assortment of numbers that happens to have that section in it that actually does something good, that's going to be the one that survives longer, because that's what we're calling the benefit, the survival.
This prove that there is a unique maker
No.
dictating very specific codes?
The maker is the laws of chemistry and the random throw of the dice. If you randomly let molecules form, eventually you're going to get a few that actually do something cool. And those that do something cool tend to outlive the ones that don't.
Where did morality and values come from? When it
I've already explained this.
comes to atheism, atheism sees the universe as a tumultuous sea of atoms that makes no sense and have no purpose,
False.
which was one of the driving motives to immorality and depravity. But since morality does exist, then atheism is invalid.
No. Atheism doesn't have anything to do with morality. Atheism is just, I don't believe in a God. That's all it is. Everything else is something else. Morality is, for me, contingent upon a little bit of Buddhism mixed with some humanism. That I value humans, that I value existence, that I want to be compassionate, because if I live in a society where compassion is a practiced thing, it might benefit me in the future, and has. If I live in a society that says that killing people's fine for any reason whatsoever, then that's going to be a horrible way to live. It's going to be very unsafe, and I'm going to have to look over my shoulder every time I turn around and make sure someone's not trying to kill me. I don't like that type of society, so I live in a society where we prohibit killing people for no good reason.
To sum up our argumentation against atheism, since there is light, then there has to be a source for this light. Since there is shade, then there has to be a body causing the shade. Since there are intricate objects starting from the quarks and ending with the galaxies, then there has to be an originator. The Quranic argumentation is the strongest ever. Do you not see how those who dispute Allah's signs are turned away from the right path? Those who reject the book, and that with which we sent our messengers, shall soon know. Translation of the meaning of the Quran, chapter 40, verses 69 and 70. How then can you turn away? What are your proofs? The atheist has nothing but believing in trivialities and impossibilities.
Yeah.